Good evening, everyone. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. A lot of you probably remember that as a very popular jazz song originally written and performed by Billie Holiday. 1941, I think, is when the recording was done. But it's more than a song to me. It really has become sort of a mantra for how I feel about the intersection of music, law, and entrepreneurship. We have a situation with artists, as Mr. Bradley was telling you a little earlier. The challenge is always, how do we protect the artist and make sure they get paid for their work so that we can all be enriched, right? The bottom line is, if we allow them to do their work, then we all benefit from it. So I was one of those kids, or maybe I was not one of those kids, but that one kid who rode around in my neighborhood 6, 7 years old on my bicycle and had a transistor radio rubber band to the handlebars. Of course, I have to explain to my kids what a transistor radio is, right? It's kind of like an iPod, right? But I knew from a very early age this was something that moved me. I was listening to the top 40, and I knew what the top 10 hits were. My sister and I used to buy 45s, and I'd look and see who wrote the songs. And it mattered to me who wrote the songs and who produced the songs. And after a while, I started seeing names over and over again. Who's this Gamble and Huff that I see on all these records? And I became a fan of great songs and great music. And that led me to where I found that that was something I had to follow. So as a teenager, I started performing as a singer. In fact, I remember, this is back in the 70s, we did our first album one night. No, really, one night. The whole album, recorded it, mixed it in one night. I was in a gospel group, and 2 weeks later, we were selling it. I mean, that's how we did our first record. But I always knew that's what I wanted to do. But meanwhile, I was kind of battling with the left brain, right brain thing. Went to a science and math high school and went to University of Maryland as an engineering student. And I walked into the advisor's office that first day at University of Maryland, and he sat down with me and he gave me my schedule for the next 4 years. And I walked out the room and said, I'm changing my major today. And I actually changed to radio, television, and film because I wanted to be around music. I wanted somehow to be attached to that thing that drove me, that gave me passion. So I studied radio, TV, and film, came out of school, and started working in radio. And while I was working in radio, I started getting a kind of a pull to understand the behind-the-scenes part of the music business, not just the talent side, but who's owning this music, who's owning the stations, who's doing the business that makes all of this possible. And that led me to going to law school. I went to law school knowing that I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. That was my goal all along, and came out of law school, worked for 3 years in DC, and then moved down here to do music and entertainment law, and I've been here since. And over the years, I had several experiences that really showed me exactly why I should be doing what I'm doing. First of all, when I was in school, in college, I was in various bands, and we'd make demos. We send them out to record companies and looking for deals. And I remember specifically, I was in law school now, maybe my second year, and I got a letter from a record company. And the letter essentially said, thank you for your demo, but this is not the direction we're going in right now. Well, I'd sent the demo like 4 years ago. I wasn't going in that direction either, right? So I realized sort of what Prince realized later on, that it's good when you can control your output. You know, you create, you put it out. You let the audience dictate what they want to hear, and you work with that. And that's when I started looking at the entrepreneurial side of the business. Started my own recording and publishing, and I've done 4 independent records. But the bigger part of my business has been helping other artists. So I became an entertainment attorney, and once again, stories started coming up over and over again where I'd see the need for people behind the scenes helping folks with their business. I had one artist who was offered a deal. The artist had, I guess there were 7 or 8 members in the group, and they were offered a deal by a major Christian label. And there were several things in the deal that I thought needed to be fixed. So I went back to the label and said, here are some things we want to change. And they said, the deal is what the deal is, take it or leave it. Well, it was an 8% royalty. The artist is probably going to come on with about 50 cents and have to split that 7 or 8 ways. The artist figured, we'll leave it, thank you very much. And the leader of that band actually became a very prominent record producer. So he was happy that he made that move and did not sign this deal that would lock him in. There are other stories that are really interesting too. When you talk about understanding commerce and understanding entrepreneurship, we're now in a position in the industry where it's almost impossible for an artist to get a deal unless they already show they have some value in the marketplace. Social media, independent recordings, and so on. But that wasn't always the case. Back in the 90s, Dave Matthews Band is a great example. They had done a couple of independent records back in the early 90s, had toured extensively, and had built quite a resume for themselves before they got the attention of RCA Records. When RCA offered them the deal, they didn't have to take the baby deal that most bands get. Why? They didn't need the deal, right? So ultimately, that's what I try to build my clients' business and repertoire into, something that, yeah, we like this deal because we know you can take us from here to there. But even if we don't have it, we're already doing what we love. We're already making a living. And so that's the element that I think is missing a lot of times from artists who don't handle the entrepreneurial side of it. So my business as an entertainment attorney, as a songwriter, as a producer, as a professor of law students is always built around create something that has value. So think about it like this. If you walk into a restaurant and you have nothing to offer, you probably get nothing to eat, right? But if you walk in there and you actually have $10 in your pocket, you can probably get a meal. So the artist has to have something to bring to the table. Facebook, Instagram, whatever the social media may be, that they can show we have some value we bring to the table. We've done 3 or 4 records independently. We're selling copies, and that allows the artist to now dictate some terms and not be lost in the abyss where they have to take a deal that's not going to be positive for them. So we had a couple of artists that I worked with over the years on some of my previous firms that I worked with who understood this. One of them is a gospel entrepreneur by the name of Bobby Jones, has a TV show on BET. And Bobby understood very early on that it wasn't about just making records. He actually makes records just for the fun of it. That's not where he makes his income. His income is from creating this television enterprise, which essentially has become a gatekeeper for the gospel industry. If you want to be known as a gospel artist in black gospel, you go through the Bobby Jones show. And so he's become that entrepreneur who now also owns other shows that are shown on BET. And that's the business side of knowing that it's not just making records, not just singing and performing, but having something that actually can generate income when you're not working. Another example of that is CeCe Winans. Worked with her for a number of years, and we saw the value in her beyond. There's something that you hear all the time now in the industry called branding. You've heard that, right? Well, we saw the value in CeCe branding back in the 90s. Well, here's a lady who has a beautiful smile. Got her a deal with Crest. Beautiful skin and hair. Got her a deal with Revlon, right? So the records sold well, but she didn't have to rely on that because there were other things coming to the table. So that's what I try to bring to my clients. And as an artist, I can do whatever I want to do because I don't have to rely on the record label saying, that's not the direction I'm going in. I can go in whatever direction I want to go in. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own. Thank you very much.